everyone saw Jackson Hayes last night, and I think that you can see that potentially we're going to be a very good basketball team, but it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight.
Who's a player or two that stood out to you so far today, John, or in the summer? Like, who's a guy who you look at and you say, okay, you know.
It's not just, you know, some guys are going to put up points. He affects the game even when his shot isn't going in. He makes the extra pass. I told someone he's going to lead the league. And
he tries to get the most out of players. He coaches guys differently because they're different personalities. But every time I've been with him and everything.
People there, that something could be coming, but who knows? We go on a 3 or 4 game winning streak. We just can't play you guys. I mean, that's been really bad. And I made the mistake.
You know, I want to ask you guys this, Coach Gentry, when you're watching the Summer League games, what are some of the things you're looking for specifically that you need to see?
Suggestions, and then when some work, you go, yeah, I suggested that. But when you're a head coach and you have to make those suggestions, and you're the one that's got to live and die.
Become decisions, right? All of a sudden it's a little bit different. All right, we're in a break zone, guys. Just go a little inside TV here, right? So 5:35 to go in this first quarter. Don't worry, Mark and Dan. We'll get it back to you eventually.
Whatever you want, Ryan.
Down there. But, well, Zion Williamson showcasing part of the reason why Alvin Gentry won.
And you can see that what's important to him is his family. His mom is the best coach he had because she's been the toughest coach that he had.
Coach, your Michigan players in the pros, and how do you think it's going to feel now going up against them in the NBA?
It's very different because we really were very.
They need to talk and come in and talk. They'll do it, and I'll allow them to talk about anything that they want to. It doesn't necessarily have to be basketball.
Coach Beeline, obviously that'll be an interesting dynamic for you too, right? Because you've had...
They've been bringing guys in waves, and each one productive off the bench. Oh, great follow by Williams out of LSU, Dan. He was a late add to the roster. And hard every night, though.
Yep.
Here's Lawrence out of the University of Miami. Corner 3, pocket good. And they've got some pieces there with Kevin Love and Colin Sexton, who low-key had a really good day. Guy leaves. You can never fault a player leaving a school to play for his dad as a head coach, right?
No.
Jackson Hayes shows nice touch. Kansas. Baseline jumper no good. On the run, the Pelicans with the layup at the other end. That's the way that head coach wasn't an accident.
No.
They led for 3/4 of the game.
Did you do that game?
Did call that game with Doris Burke.
I'm not going to lie to you. I watched that game while I was playing black. Reason for that.
Tell you what, he really opened up the door to it. And their Chinese professional league is a very Los Angeles Clippers. Part of that trade going to Oklahoma City now. Alexander with a nice scoop shot. Oh, boy.
Or sweatpants.
No hands?
Nothing. Come on. Me, Chicago. Gary, Barry. What's the same Little League in Gary? Nice.
Tip in. Joel Oladipo and Malcolm Brogdon. I had a chance to.
You like Brogdon?
Yeah, I love what he does. 50, 40, 90 guy, and room service for Williams at the other end.
Cautious with him. You know, because, you know, his injury, people don't know. Oh, wow.
Great move up, and sometimes it really is bigger than the money or anything else. Williams with the room service slam. Up that secret passageway they got in Staples Center this year. Adams with a nice hezzy and layup. I like the fact the Memphis Grizzlies. Cohen on a nice baseline drive. Wow. Jackson Hayes hit the delete. Bring back that guy called He Hate Me. I'm not watching.
Oh,
great time by Walker, but a better block by Naz Long.
He's not as big as I thought he was.
I want to say he had the longest wingspan ever at the combine. Long inside, blocked.
Tried to get the next play. He said Reggie Miller wanted to talk to him about the 8 points in 9 seconds that he had in the guard.
You didn't remember? Joey, very passionate about women's collegiate basketball and women's high school basketball. Actually, very integral in starting NCU. Played 46 games with New Orleans this past season. Started 29, most of them down the stretch. Malik Newman is an interesting prospect. Dan, I remember him playing on the...
He was as highly recruited as anybody in the country. I mean, he really was. And when Mississippi State got him, it was fine. But then Had a nice run at Kansas.
It's going to be interesting, though, to see how the 76ers manage him this year physically. Long on the break. Got by Williams, literally broke his ankle. Off the screen from Bolden. Bolden posting up on Jackson Hayes. Nice looking jump hook.
Back then. And we were talking about some of the assets, particularly Brandon Ingram. And he just raved about Brandon.
He's coming off that situation where he had the blood clot that pretty much snuffed out the last several weeks of his season. Newman hitting botting, not something that was more pathological. So, Dan, I'm not a doctor. I don't even play one on TV.
You sound like one.
But it just sounds like
Lonzo Ball fit in the NBA.
Well, I think him and Drew Holiday will form one of the best defensive backcourts in the league, maybe the best. Alexander in his bag. Good defense.
That's exactly the way to put it. Oh, there you go.
He didn't call it bank, but Carl Cheatham.
Oh,
great handle by Adams and finished at the rim.
a little crossover.
Booth behind the screen drills it. Cleveland Cavaliers by 20 points. Mark Jones chopping it up with Dan Dokic and George Sedano and Ryan Rucco on coach's appreciation. Lozada. You know, you look at this Pelicans Summer League edition, and one of the great reclamation stories that
tournament, and he had more people around him.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's good for Abdul Rahman. I love that kid. Goes with anything. Had it once in college. It did not end well.
Dennis Smith Jr. of the New York Knicks. Watching courtside. Hayes flushing it home. We'll see them both 0 and 3. Booth, a little side pick and roll with Williams. Took the hit and won. Wow. Talk about finishing through contact, Dan Dockett.
Yeah, that was really. Nazir Little had one in a game that we did. That
He's right there, too.
Whoa.
There's been some fantastic moments, and corner jumper. And look at the big shots he made.
That's what I was just going to say. I mean, it's one thing training camp. It's one thing, middle of December. But when you make them in the final, whoa, you want the ball to spin backwards. Not like a globe.
That a little bit more 19-point ball game. Didn't know that Jackson Hayes quite had that three-pointer in his arsenal. Williams with the left hand. And the Cavaliers trying to. I read it, then hit the delete button.
I failed calculus 3 times in college. And
yeah, we talked about the talented Florida State players we saw for the Clippers a couple of nights ago.
Like anything else, you'll forget about the Summer League. First night when he goes off for 20, gets to the rim, the Gardens are rocking. I tell you what, that's a great.
Recently with Carl Brown at Georgia Tech, Lou Deng in 2004. Bolden muscling his way inside.
Yeah, but he was Purdue. I mean, he had to do that. Brad Steve is really excited about it.
Walker inside, tough shot. Boy, he 24 points on a very efficient 9 of 19.
Talk about Zion Williamson, and you should. Zion Williamson has everything.
The late, great Hall of Famer Chuck Daly was one of my favorites. I remember going in the Pistons locker room after a game for William Bedford. And I asked Chuck, I said, what's the cake for? He said, I said, is it Riley or Chuck Daly were giving you hand-me-downs? You had some drip, baby. You had some drip.
Hey, Chuck.
It has a lot of tentacles and branches to his coaching tree.
Can I tell you about Fred Vincent, the coach of the
Pelicans?
He played for 22 teams after he played at Georgia Tech. 22 teams. My man.
Caracas. Somewhere in Spain or Mexico?
Caracas, I think.
Venezuela.
Yeah.
That's 4 countries.
All right, Southern California surf.
West Coast basketball?
Yes, very good. I knew it. I knew it.
Malik Newman on the drive. Meanwhile, Jackson Hayes for the Pelicans. He came into the game one of the top scorers in anywhere. Here's Dawkins working against Malik Newman. Nice find inside. Great ball movement. And Cheatham with the punt.
Big time, I think. Certainly this year and over time, even more so.
The well-traveled head coach of the Summer League edition of the Pelicans.